And we are live. Welcome to the first CLMOOC 2016 Make With Me.
Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Hodgson, and I'm just going to try to guide the beginning of our first Make With Me hangout here for the first Make cycle of the CLMOOC of 2016. And we're really excited to have people with us on the hangout, but also if people are watching remotely, there's a chat room off our CLMOOC website, which is clmooc.com/2016/. And if you go to the jump-in area, you'll find the Make With Me place. And also the website is a place where we're trying to gather up resources that we're using for this summer's activities, as well as a look back on kind of where Making Learning Connected MOOC kind of came from. And so if you're with us, we really welcome you. And just a little overview. This is the fourth year, I believe, of CLMOOC, and it began 4 years ago through the kind of collaborative vision of the National Writing Project and Educator Innovator, and as a way to explore the idea of open collaboration with connected learning principles as the kind of pedagogy underneath it all. And connected learning really looks at the way that young people use technology in the modern day to communicate, to be active in social and public spheres, to use media as a way to raise their voice, all things that are really fascinating to kind of see, and then to try to help teachers kind of do some of the same things themselves over the summer is really the aim of the CLMOOC. This summer, National Writing Project Educator Innovator are doing a lot of work with the Letters to the President project, which is definitely worth checking out, which this fall will engage students in kind of active roles in thinking about the presidential election. And a bunch of us who have been participants and facilitators in CLMOOC wanted to keep it going this summer, and so that's what we're doing. And we've kind of crowdsourced the facilitation here. We have a fair number of people behind the scenes, participants who for the first time are kind of stepping up in a lot of ways and taking leadership of this kind of open community. And so we're going to talk about some of the things we've seen this week, I hope. Share out some things, just kind of talk about kind of where we are. So we want to welcome everyone to this hangout, and it will be archived and posted both within the CLMOOC YouTube page, but also we'll have links off our website as well. So what I'd like to do, if we don't mind, is kind of go through all of us and kind of say a little bit of who we are, and are we teaching or what are we up to, and say hello to the world, I guess. Would anybody like to begin?
Okay, this is Sherry Edwards, and I just retired after 31 years of teaching, and that I have mixed feelings about that. I really miss it, but I'm still in communication with my school and the families and my students. And I started as a participant in CLMOOC 2013, and then I helped out the last 2 years, and it is a labor of love, and we want to keep the connected learning going. So I already started out my little make tonight. There we go. We want to cultivate community.
Yeah.
That's an honor of Susan, one of our guests here, because I love her artwork.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I guess I can go next to you on my screen. I don't know who I'm next to on your screen.
I think that's a good transition.
Yep. I've been teaching for 23 years. I teach in a middle school. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at an alternative school. That's a school where all the kids who have not been able to be successful at their home schools are placed at my school. So we have very small classes, but very high intensity students. I'm in Maryland. I'm really here on the hangout to learn and experience it, not as an expert, but I'm looking forward to it, and super happy to see Fred, String Stories for Peace, because I want to learn from him too.
I think that goes to Fred to introduce himself then. It's like, this is perfect.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Susan. Yeah, great segue. Fred Mindlund, I've been a teaching artist now pretty much full-time the last 2 years and focused on string stories for peace and fun. And so I'll talk more about that later on. But I really love the CLMOOC. I've been leading a face-to-face drop-in group every 2 weeks for the last, we're now starting our 4th year. We started with the very first summer of the CLMOOC through a little grant from NWP, and then I just loved it so much I've kept it up as a volunteer. And I have one stalwart member who comes every time, and we managed to rope in a few others here and there. But I have faith that the word will spread.
Helen?
Hi, I'm Helen Dward. I teach at a Faculty of Education here in Central Ontario, and this is my second CLMOOC experience, so I'm jumping in with 2 feet, diving in deep, and and learning lots as I go. So it's really nice to connect and reconnect to some of the people that I shared stories with and images and poetry with last year. So it's nice to be here.
Great.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer. Karen, you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll come back to Jennifer once the video feed gets in.
Sure. I'm Karen Fastenpower, and I am not teaching in a formal setting right now, but involved in a lot of maker stuff and have been involved with CLMOOC, I guess, since pretty much the beginning. And I just love this group of people and happy to be here with you all.
Great. Jennifer, I don't know if you connected with us, but would you like to introduce yourself? I'm not sure if the connection got made or not. Well, we can come back to Jennifer for sure if it gets in there. As I mentioned, my name is Kevin Hodgson. I teach 6th grade out in Western Massachusetts, and I am part of the Western Massachusetts Writing Project. Up until recently, I was a technology co-director, but I've shifted over to become what's called the outreach co-director, which means I'm now working to try to connect more teachers, which is a perfect transition for the kind of CLMOOC work and other things. So I'm really kind of excited to be here. I went to our Summer Institute today, which is a 3-week intensive kind of summer program where teachers coming into the writing project immerse themselves in writing and the teaching of writing, and also giving out workshops and professional development. So I popped in there today for the morning to say hello and kind of see what was going on and kind of talk about different things. And I give a big shout out to the CLMOOC and sent them all the links. So I'm hoping some of them kind of pop in if they can as part of that. And because we want to kind of spread the news about kind of the interesting things that we're doing. So Sherry showed her make a little bit. So I was telling some of these beforehand that, I don't know if you can see this. Let me pull it up. I had this weird instrument that I got a long time ago, and then I lost it. It's called a Chaosilator, and I just found it again yesterday. And so the way it works is, I'll hook up the little speaker right now. It's kind of like a touch screen. Pretty cool, and you can kind of make the switches on it, and it changes the sound. Like scary movie stuff. So if you ever hear that going in the background as you're talking, I'm listening to you, but I might be trying to do a backbeat for you as well with the Chaosilator. Because we're trying to think about ways that we're kind of making around our interests, and for me, music's a big part of what I do. So first of all, before we kind of keep going on, I want to say hi to Karen. Hi, Karen. Can you see us?
Hi.
Hi, Karen.
Yeah, I can.
We were just introducing ourselves a little bit, if you'd like to do that.
I'm Karen Belinda, and I'm in upstate New York.
Thanks.
I'm not sure what else you said to everybody.
Oh, well, if we're in a teaching or education environment, we just talked about that a little bit. If not, that's fine too. And maybe what got you interested in CLMOOC?
I teach 9 and 10 and 12th graders in a regular public school, and I don't know, last year I somehow stumbled across you folks from the National Writing Project, and here I am this year. It was a lot of fun last year.
Great. Well, welcome. We're glad that you're here. So tonight the plan is really just to kind of chat about how things are going in this first week, and I do want to say that we have to make sure that, because along with Sherry, Sarah Honeychurch from Scotland is, the two of them are the main facilitators for this kind of first make cycle. And Sarah cannot be here because she's on an island that has remote access and join her, but she's been certainly active on Twitter and our G+ community, and I imagine Facebook, since I know that she's keeping an eye on that too. And so we want to kind of make sure her presence is here with us too, even though she couldn't be on the Hangout, because she's been very active in the back with Sherry on kind of planning out ways that people can get involved in different levels, no matter kind of where you are. You know, you're welcome and you're here at the right time, whatever that happens to be. Even if you're just watching and observing, that's fine too. So I don't know, Sherry, you want me to kick it over to you a little bit and kind of talk a little about what's been going on this week?
Okay. I don't know, at the beginning of this chat, I don't know if Karen can share the introduction tack that I shared, because there's been some marvelous introductions, because when you start a community, and the one thing about is most of them are open online courses, but we called CLMOOC a collaboration. And so if you've noticed, I'll add a little bit there. If you've noticed the introductions, there's many different kinds, and that's usually how we start. And I've been really impressed, and I was wondering if Karen, if you would talk about how you thought of doing your comic and tell us a little bit about Morley, because each of us is doing an introduction that's unique to us, and it might in every day, like Raymond talked about, I suppose, and Sarah talked about this moment, I think is how she put it. So at that moment, you felt a comic and something about Morley. Could you talk about how you thought of that?
Well, Marley seems to be the popular thing.
Yes.
I was just, yeah, I guess. Well, he's my avatar as well. So he's a rescue dog, and I have seriously been thinking of getting him trained so he can legally go into classrooms and things. So I was thinking with the Writing Institute that we're just finishing up here, and what can I do with my dog? And I'm thinking too of what my students want to do with their everyday objects. So he's part of me, and I'm part of him, and the introduction kind of went with Marley, but I also like fun as well. So we had the, and I think it was you come up with the comic app last year. So it was really easy just back to that. And so my goal is to hit next make. So watch for, I think. But really, honestly, you don't have to know a lot of stuff, and I did do an oops because the first time I did it on the iPad, I had the wrong resolution. So I know somebody put in before I had to delete the. So, yeah, I'm all oops.
Last year we had that whole theme of the oops, didn't we? I think where
yes.
I know.
You know, certainly it's always acceptable to make that.
Yep. So,
But that's part of the fun part about CLMOOC is you really are just, you're playing, and as long as you don't take things seriously and, oh my gosh, the whole world has just seen what I did, you really do learn. So.
yeah, mistakes help us learn, right? And And the
Yep,
thing
they
about
do.
CLMOOC is we are supporting each other, because if you've noticed in the introductions, all of you, there are so many excellent comments because people are making connections with each other. And that's the second part of what we wanted to happen is once you've introduced yourself, you know, comment, make connections, and maybe even do, you know, cultivate a little group or do some remixing, because we want to make sure that if someone is generous enough to share, that we will show gratitude by perhaps remixing. And we want to thank Scott Glass for giving us that way of thinking about things. So, an example is Helen. You want to talk about your numbers, 2-number activity? Thank you. We're making, right? As we speak here.
Making MOOC mood music.
This is tough for us ADD people, I must say.
So Helen, you did 2 things with numbers. You gave us an invitation in your blog and on Twitter. So can you talk about that, because that's a big part of CLMOOC?
So it started with the blog post that I did earlier today, where I just shared my introduction in terms of the numbers that are connected to myself, my life. I'm a pair, my husband and I have 3 children. I have 4 siblings, 4 sisters. Our family of 5 drives a lot, so it just framed everything nicely for me in terms of my introduction. And that kicked off to a blog by Jennifer Denslow, who added a poem prompt that included a number generator. And I just tweeted out, sent out a quick tweet, and had a whole pile of people just create these number poems as comments on her blog post. So it was really nice to see that connection and cross-population just shouted out, and people start creating from somebody else's idea.
And
I think that's a really important kind of message too, that we want to make sure that we're sending out too, about reciprocation of, we'll talk more about actually Make Cycle 2 around this idea of trying to find ways to help us all kind of move beyond the 1 thumbs up, the +1, all the kind of quick things we do, maybe to show acknowledgement, but how can we kind of figure out a way to go a little deeper than that, and we're kind of setting the stage for the rest of the CLMOOC too, about trying to help us all kind of figure out ways to make deeper connections than the kind of quick kind of little things, which don't mean those don't count necessarily, but we want to go deeper, I think. We hope that we want to go deeper, because those are the connections that we make with people, and are hopefully kind of meaningful as well. So, yeah.
I think we're trying to be more transparent about making that a most important piece of this.
Jennifer, Jen, you might want to mute your. There you go. Go ahead, Susan. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. The connections are important, but I think for these 3 short cycles this year, we're trying to make that very explicit. That like Terry says about close reading each other's work. Instead of assuming that that's going to happen, we're going to make that an explicit, transparent focus. Really diving into other people's work and making sure that we're not just +1ing or liking it. And I think that hopefully will lead to some wonderful unintended consequences, as well as more evolution of connection.
It's interesting. I'd never really thought of it in these terms, but in a way, I think it does. This next thought comes out of that CLMOOC experience. I've found myself not wanting to like or share any posts unless I have something meaningful to say as a real comment. So I sort of hold myself back from responding until I actually have a response, not just the immediate, oh, that's cool, but something interesting that relates to what was in that post and why it related to me. So that's a sort of CLMOOC-ish attitude.
Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you came in kind of midway through, and you may have muted you. I don't know.
I think she left. Or no, she rejoined.
Sure.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. This is my first time in a Hangout, so
All right.
hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, my name's... thanks. I finally figured it out a few minutes in, but here I am. I'm in Northeast Oklahoma. I've been teaching speech, drama, and debate for about 23 years, and I stumbled onto the MOOC about, I don't know, 3 years ago, some connection through the National Writing Project, and I love coming in and spending some time here. I find it really inspiring, and when I saw Helen's post today with her number introduction, it definitely inspired me to see what I could do. I'm a very low-tech sort of person, but I think I liked what I accomplished with putting up the generator for a random number form.
Yeah. That was really helpful. I think providing kind of places for people to be able to make that step is really important, and so that's really helpful. And I think a point that you made, which is we try to talk about a lot, but because we're on computers, it doesn't always resonate. Is that makes don't have to be digital. There's a lot of things that people do. They garden, they do woodworking, they do all sorts of things. They do scissors, as Karen's shown. They make postcards. Things kind of outside the computer, and I think it's important that we mention that a lot, so that people know they shouldn't be tethered to their computer for CLMOOC. That you should go off and do the things you love or things you wanted to try, and hopefully if you can document it. That would be great because then we can learn with you. So thank you, Jennifer. And thanks for popping into your first Hangout, too. That's cool.
Talking about failure is a big part of CLMOOC anyway, because if you're trying new things and taking risks, you're going to have failures and you're going to learn from them. And hopefully that's what we're telling our students as well. And the thing, this group is so supportive that you're always going to have people to help you. You'll always have people that can answer your questions or help you find the answers or guide you or fail with you, which is awesome as well.
We've done that.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is our students aren't afraid to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially with technology. And so once we learn to dive right in there and keep trying and realize that, oh, that didn't work. Well, what if I did this? That's what kids do, and they're not afraid to push those buttons. So it really shows. I think they have more respect for a teacher that is willing to try and fail than somebody who wants everything planned out perfectly. So
I feel, for some reason,
we just ask them.
I feel like I learned more about people in these introductions than I've learned in any other year previously. And I'm not sure if that's because I'm looking at it differently, but I felt like, Fred's is a great example. What an amazing life. I told him he needs to write a book. I feel like I learned more different things about people. They were more specific. Introductions I felt were more specific. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
It's a good transition to Fred, I think.
I keep throwing it to Fred.
Well, I want to bring up the when we first began and mentioned how important it is to play and to feel free to make mistakes. I think one of the most powerful things I've ever heard in any kind of social justice workshop training is, in so many groups, especially for a Western white male, you feel like you're the oppressing group, and everybody else is a member of some target group. And one of the best ways for anyone to get in touch with what people mean when they say they're members of a target group and really feel that feeling is to think back to childhood, because children are a target group against whom there are a lot of structural prejudices and just offhand flip behaviors. Like, you know, one of the examples is how easily adults will pick up a child and sweep them off their feet. And that's not, you know, imagine if somebody just randomly came up to you, picked you up under your armpits, and threw you up in the air. That would feel really weird and invasive. But we do it to kids all the time without thinking about it. So I think all of these efforts to rediscover for ourselves as adults what childhood feels like can also be very illuminating in terms of being able to empathize, really get the feeling of what somebody's saying when they say they feel targeted by something that's going on.
That's very deep.
Yep.
Yeah.
That idea of deep listening, right? Deep reading, deep understanding of other people. We all know we could use some more of that in the world. I mean, look at the headlines and think about what's going on in different parts of our country and other parts of the world, and making a difference is something that people in education do. Is we're kind of thinking about that too in a lot of our students in a lot of ways.
And
Do
that
you want to talk about string stuff at all? I'm sorry, Sherry.
I was just going to say, it also reminds me of student voice. And I know, we all work on that in our classrooms, helping students find their voice. So yes, talk to us a little bit about strings, Fred.
Well, I think that one of the things that I realized just shortly toward the end of having done pretty much a full year of teaching kids how to tell stories with string is that the string functions in many ways the way a puppet does in a puppet show. And part of the advantage of that for kids in school is that the focus is not on them and their face. They get to direct people's attention to something else, and in a way that amplifies the impact of their story, because it's so hard when you're not used to being on stage and being the center of attention to have all of that directed at you. So string is really helpful in that way. The other thing about string stories as a teaching tool in the classroom, one of the best technology investments our local school district has ever made was this last year. They finally completed getting a sound system installed in every classroom, and it was mainly part of a developing projection screen and letting people do stuff on video, but part of it was they got speakers that have a microphone which can be either handheld or worn around the neck, so that one of the big challenges with especially first and second graders trying to get them to tell a story to the class was, how do you get those kids whose voices are just inherently quiet or are frightfully shy to be heard by the rest? And half of that is training the rest of the class to be a good audience, but it also really helps to have that little bit of amplification that lets everybody focus on that student's voice. So that's really what my work is about, is getting those students to use their voices and invent.
Great.
So can you give us
I'll do a demo.
Can you make us a story, Fred?
I'll give you. Here's the story that. the story that came up for me at this social justice workshop that I went to, and it was just a total inspiration at the time. And the story is about how there is a mountain. How do I exit? Let me get this. Yeah. There's a mountain of prejudice in the world, and we can zap it with our social justice work. So I'm struggling with this format, but it goes from this mountain to lightning in the original figure. It's just the storm over the mountain. And you can go back and forth in this very dramatic way. And even sometimes I'm able to get the mountain to grow slowly. So that was a complete inspiration in the midst of doing a presentation around social justice to a group of teachers in a what they called a I'm forgetting the term. It's like a tank where you throw a bunch of people in and give them each 2 minutes to share. And then they awarded some small grants at the end, and everybody got a grant, and everybody had fun. But it made for a really wonderful, spontaneous sharing about this kind of work that we all want to do. A lot of it was about diversity and gender issues, and but for me, it's just getting kids to use their voices. That's really the most important part.
Which brings us back to our introductions and how each of us have used our voice to share who we are in different ways. There's been collages, comics, the story builder, superheroes, poetry, art, all those different ways, and what a great model that is for our students too.
There was a question on chat about connection versus making. What's the focus? I don't know if we wanted to talk about that a little bit. Are we focusing on connecting? Or are we focused on making? And Karen had answered, we're doing both, but I don't know if the panel wanted to talk about that at all.
Well, I think it is both. I think that you know, when we're pursuing the things that interest us and sharing it out to the community, then I mean, I'm looking at Fred doing that string. I'm thinking, I don't know if I could do that, right? So, and I've seen him do it before in different things. I watched some of his videos, and we've chatted before, and so I mean, kind of learning from each other a little bit, or getting inspired by each other. Whether it happens to some or not may or may not happen, right? But I mean, that's part of that that collaboration element. I think. I mean, that's how I see it, anyways. That we're both sharing expertise, but hopefully trying new things too that interest us. And I mean, that's one of the underlying elements of connected learning, is that idea of your interest and sharing it with peers and seeking out experts to kind of help teach you, and kind of even if we're not saying that explicitly in the way we're asking people to do things, I mean, that's the underlying kind of pedagogy of it across the board. Yeah, I think it's both. I don't know what other people think.
I agree. I think it is both, because if we're just putting out our makes and just getting ideas, that's okay. But on the other hand, it's a open online collaboration, which means we're working together, and we learn better when we share and build on other people's ideas. So, for instance, Kim's poetry, she had Ordinary this week, and then people were doing these great visuals, like Joanne Jacobs had that beautiful sunflower, and then she wrote a few words about herself. So I took the ordinary from my neighborhood, just a picture out on the street of our neighbor's bike, and then I turned that into a poem. And that also could have just been my introduction of how much I enjoy the sounds of children outside. I have none at home anymore, but my grandchildren will be here next week, so this weekend coming up shortly, so I'll hear that laughter. But that's a connection. And then when I went to Sarah's blog and saw the pictures of her cats, then I shared my cats with her. So that's connecting with others and sharing a little bit more about yourself by taking a picture of my cat, writing a little poem. And then that helped, I forget who it was, who just lost her cat, just lost her furry friend. And so that picture, there was another connection there. So it just kind of builds and flows. We're like building a neighborhood. And we drop in and visit each other once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've noticed a pretty wide variety of introductions. Maybe it's just because every year it feels that way, but it does feel like the variety is wider this year. Like I remember the first year that there were a couple of ideas. By the way, Joe likes to tell a story that the whole idea of the first make of the first CLMOOC was going to be podcasting and voice, and nobody did it. Instead, people did a whole bunch of other things, which is great. But there were a few things that I think once one person did, a lot of people riffed off it, or not replicate, but riffed off it. And this year, it just seems like there's really a wide variety of visuals and different things. There's not really one trendy thing that a lot of people are jumping on, and I think that's really interesting. I think that shows maybe comfort or confidence and certain creativity as well. So I think it's neat.
And it also speaks to folks of CLMOOC is that you need to enter where you're at and try what's comfortable to you, and that I think helps because some people have been in CLMOOC for quite a while, some people are beginners, and so just picking what you're comfortable with, and that's how we learn, is that's personalized learning, and so it's connected learning, so it's individual yet connected. I just think that's neat that we have good variety, is because we really say, here's some ideas, but could you give us some too? Mm-hmm. So it's an open invitation.
The other thing that discussion makes me think of the question of is it about the connecting or is it about the making, reminds me a little bit of the perpetual conversation about what matters in learning. Is it process or product? And I'm always much more interested in process and not very interested in product. But I also recognize that there's an importance to product in a formal educational setting, in the sense that you've got to be able to have some evidence of what's been going on to show to others. But it's really for the others for the most part, and not so much for the kids. I mean, I hope that the kids have internalized what they're learning and are able to then use it and apply it in another situation. And I don't really care about whether they got it in terms of making the product I'm looking for this time. I really want to see that internal learning going on.
Yeah, and I think that when CLMOOC people, us, do like a process post about like what they went through to make whatever it is they're making, I mean, I love those posts. I think they're really interesting, and they uncover a lot of the thinking that was going on. And yes, I can enjoy whatever the product is, the kind of the final make for what it is, but I'm really fascinated by how people got to that point. And And so I always appreciate when people take the time, and sometimes you spur them on too, like, how did you do that? Can you explain how you did that, or what your thinking was? That's stepping back a little bit, kind of, and thinking through, yeah, this is what I did, this is my intention, this is where it didn't go the way I wanted to, this is where it went perfectly the way I thought it would be. That those are really important, and echoing back to what Fred is saying, I think that as educators, we always talk about, like, well, how does this translate back to our learning classroom, whatever you happen to be in? And I think that's part of it, is it's the getting there that's the important part of it. And yeah, we're all going to get somewhere at some point, but I think the journey of it is really interesting. So, I mean, I'm always really appreciative when people take the time to do that, so I can kind of learn what they were up to and kind of think about, through their eyes, how it went for them. So, and I think that's a part of the community experience.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Susan.
I was going to say, one of the things I've gotten more comfortable with as a teacher over the last 23 years is, doing the best I can to set up the situation instructionally, but then being comfortable with letting things happen that I cannot predict in any way. And that process that Fred's talking about, and seeing that unfurl within the kids, even though they're not doing, quote unquote, what I thought they would do or what I wanted them to do, or, that's something that I think over time you become more and more comfortable with. And, that's, I think, part of why we're emphasizing connections in CLMOOC is because so many things happen when you connect that you could not have predicted. When I started, I don't know whether it's 3 or 4 years ago in CLMOOC, I really had no idea what it was. And what I got out of it was the connections, not the technology, not the apps and the things like that. It's the people, some of whom are on this call. It's the connections that last, and the makes are awesome. But to me, it ends up being really about the connections that you can make.
And that connection is both, on a personal level, you get to know and identify with the person that you're talking with. It's also the conversation that you have about the process, or about what to do next, or about what's happening in gardening, for instance, or food for Karen. It's so connection is a big umbrella term for conversation, getting to know each other, and finding things to do with that idea of knowing each other. Because remember, Kevin, when you started that constellation stories, that was so much fun. I was able to, able to write a constellation for my dog, and so he's not with us anymore. And so when I look at the stars, I think, that is up there.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're talking about. It's not just a, I like this, I like this. It's giving and learning and then reflecting in ways that help all of us grow. That's what I think. And that's what, in my classroom, the best learning is not that I asked them to do something in particular. It's that the kids started working and helping each other and saying, I'm going to do it this way because I want it to show this idea. And I can't, the way Ms. Edwards says to do it, it's not going to work. And that's the best learning. And then somebody else says, well, why did you do that? How did you do that? And then it just spreads. That's what I love, and that's what's happening here. So.
I'll just jump in because we just talked a little bit about the word catalyst, and that's exactly what CLMOOC does for me and does, I think, for a lot of people. And it's that is the pebble in the pond and the ripples that kind of reach out. But as teachers, really, that's what we want our students to be for each other, so that the ideas will flow from them, not from us necessarily. And that's sometimes a messy process to be in, and CLMOOC helps I think get our heads wrapped around the fact that there's no seamless one way. There's multiple entry points. There's multiple opportunities. There's multiple exit points. There's multiple makes that happen, and it's a cataclysmic type of event as opposed to a structured and streamed event. So I think that's ultimately, you talk about strings that will weave us together. It's the connections and the people that are kind of the nodes in the cataclysmic event.
Jennifer or Karen, do you want to jump in at all?
They're muted.
That was beautiful, Helen. I'm glad we have that recorded. I'm trying to get that in there.
Jennifer?
Well, there we go. I was going to say that idea of being comfortable with these different ways of doing things is something that I think we get from the MOOC, and it really interests me that my students need to cultivate that too. I get them as freshmen in speech and drama and want to help them be comfortable speaking and playing and performing with the other students in the class, and they are not used to going out of their comfort zone. So I think that the kind of risk-taking that we are able to take in the MOOC can help us help our students take that same kind of risk in our classroom.
I agree.
Good point.
Got some well-spoken people on this call.
Well, I think too that it takes confidence and time as well. Like, we know that there are a fair number of other people who just kind of watch over time, and that's fine. And it might be that they're not comfortable with this idea of sharing in the open space and other things that might be just for them, a step too far at this point. But I think the hopeful element of an open, collaborative environment like this is that there's space for everyone. I mean, you don't have to be actually active participants to be part of what we consider our CLMOOC family, right? And that idea of making sure that, which is difficult from a design standpoint, of making sure that there are enough entry points for anybody of wherever they are that they can feel involved. And I think we're all still trying to make that happen. So.
CLMOOC open, so enter where you are and weave yourself into the community. I'm just tweeting right now.
So as as the summer progresses, and we made it a shorter MOOC this year than other years. It's usually been about 6 weeks, and we've shortened it down purposely to 4 weeks with a nice little break week in between to give people a chance to breathe. But I'm sure we'll have some information that week too, just ways to kind of help us, enter that zone of take a breath, see where we are, and be reflective. Sometimes with these kind of experiences, and particularly MOOCs, I think is that the pace gets fast and furious at times. You don't have time or kind of step aside, and you feel like you're going to lose the whole track of everything. So we're hoping that kind of break week will kind of allow us all to kind of settle in. And as we move through this week of Sherry and Sarah helping us kind of cultivate connections, we're going to be talking about reciprocation and generosity as we move into next week, a little break after that, and then we're going to find ways to celebrate the whole idea too. That'll be kind of how we kind of move into the last week. So, there's a trajectory, I think, as we were trying to think about how it might look, so that things kind of filter back or fall back on each other. So you have this kind of a cyclical idea of we're sharing things this week and connecting this week. We're going to build on that as we kind of move through, with I think the hope that the connections continue beyond the summer, as we've talked about a little bit here, and different ways that might happen, knowing that we're all have very busy lives too. But we want to have different communities we can fall back on that can help us when we need it or talk to when we want to.
Just
And
looking,
speaking,
ripping off.
oh,
Go ahead.
oh, I just was going to ask you and Kevin to share how after CLMOOC you guys had worked together, hadn't you, with your students' stories?
A little bit, yeah. And I wanted to say
Yeah.
today I showed my mom the map, the Google map with everyone on it, and you know, I think we take it for granted, but she was amazed by the widespread, worldwide, you know, the fact that there are so many people all over the world that are involved, and that's really an experience to be cherished. I mean, not everybody gets to be connected to people all over the world like that. Kevin and I both did some choose your own adventure stories with our students, and he was willing, and some other people in CLMOOC were also willing to read them and give them some feedback. And my kids read some of his kids' choose your own adventure stories, and it really helped my kids who have never been successful to realize that it's not just Miss Watson making us do this. You know, other people around the country are also doing these types of projects. So, but it meant a lot to me that people in the MOOC were willing to help my kids out and take the time, because I know how busy everybody is. Take the time to really give them some feedback and read the stories and put up with the fact that they were filled with typos and things that didn't make any sense. You know, there were also some interesting ideas, but Kevin's were much more organized and edited and things like that, and it was good for my kids to see, I think.
And I think it's a good example of the faith that we all have, that, you know, there's a trickle effect of CLMOOC kind of philosophy that slowly comes into our learning experiences, and I think it's unrealistic to think that it transforms any space overnight. I think it takes time, and you know, thinking of ways to use our experiences and our connections to connect our kids, and you know, I think a number of us in different ways have tried to do that, and I think that's important. I think that I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out too, right? Every time I think, well, why don't I do everything we did in the MOOC in the classroom, but it's not realistic, you know? And yet, if I step back, I can see elements of it in different ways, even an existing assignment, you know, ways to kind of push it the next step forward, and I think that's really cool. But I don't always see it in the moment, though.
Right, it helps me see possibilities that I wouldn't have seen without the MOOC, definitely.
Yeah. So I think are we moving toward the last 5 minutes or so of the hangout?
I actually have to leave
Okay.
a little bit early, so I'm going to jump out with just thanks to everybody, and especially to Sarah, our absentee facilitator. It's really been wonderful to have her presence, and I love her delightful whimsy. So all of us are just really, I hope, ready to share and egg each other on to do more fun and creative things. It's just a marvelous experience. Thank you all.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, maybe we can go through and just do a couple of final thoughts before we say goodbye. So that was nice of Fred. Helen, you want to go? I'm just looking at my screen, so maybe I'll go on my.
Sure. And I just wanted to reemphasize the connections always around honoring the human behind the make, behind the images, behind the text, behind the video. There's a human being, and it's honoring that person wherever they are, wherever they're coming from, and whatever they are able to create. And just respecting and sharing back the same.
Yeah, thank you. Jennifer, would you like to say a couple of things before we head out?
Sure, I think that's really valuable what Helen just said about honoring the person behind the make. And maybe as teachers, we don't often get to be that person because we're helping our students be that person. But I want to say thank you to Helen for her wonderful introduction, her number introduction. It was really inspiring. And as was her about me on her blog that I went on to read, it was interesting. And thanks everybody for letting me be part of this first hangout. It was a cool experience.
That's great. I'm so happy you were here. Yeah. Karen? Owen?
I'm finally on, right? I'm still learning all the stuff. So I'm on 2 computers, but I agree. Helen last year was the first one to come, and that sent me over the hills, you know. So I agree that we have to look at what we say to our students that's going to encourage them to continue making those risks, whether you know how to use comic apps or if you know how to use all the electronical stuff that Kevin plays with. So I really appreciate MOOC, and I'm really looking forward, and thanks for letting me in on this. I didn't realize it was the real live one. Thank you all. Bye.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry, do you want to go?
Okay, well, I just want to encourage everybody to continue with your introductions and connecting with conversation. There's some really excellent referrals to each other back and forth. I really, it's a great MOOC, and I hope people are looking at that. And I want to thank Kevin and Karen and Jeff and Joe and everybody and Sarah for helping us make this week happen. That's all of us. The thing about the CLMOOC is that we support each other a lot, and so if you're out there a member of this community, just ask. There are Twitters, Facebook, the Google Plus community, so ask. Somebody will step up and offer suggestions and ideas and work with you.
Absolutely. Susan? Thank you, Sherry.
Sure. I feel like I should do numbers. 1, shout out to Sarah. We missed you, and thanks for everything that you've been doing on this make cycle and every other make cycle. 2, thanks to everyone here for welcoming me to the community. It's an awesome group of people. And 3, have fun. Don't forget. That's, to me, what this is all about as well. And Kevin is really good at putting out little fun activities that engage the brain. And they've made me promise not to do Marco Polo, but I perhaps might break that promise.
I didn't make you promise.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, hopefully your brain, but also your heart. That's what I want to do too. Great. So it's been great being here. I'm going to kick it over to Karen for some last-minute things before we kind of end our hangout.
Great. I have a lot of gratitude for everybody on this hangout and people in the chat room and people watching all over. And I'm excited that I'm seeing new faces in CLMOOC this year, and I just look forward to having the depth of connections that I've been able to have in previous years and just carry through the year. So I'm really excited about that. And just a couple housekeeping details. We will have a Twitter chat at #CLMOOC on this Thursday at the same time as this hangout. So 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern, and consult your local time zone. There will be another newsletter, and if you're not getting the newsletters yet, there's a sign up on the CLMOOC website to get the weekly newsletters by email if you would like to do that. We also post them in on the website, Twitter, Facebook, and our G+ community is really, if you're not in G+ yet, you might just jump over there. Lots and lots of activity there, and wherever you want to participate for CLMOOC is great. Don't feel like you have to check all those channels. Pick the ones that work for you, and we will have another one of these Make With Me Hangouts same time next week. So thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you online everywhere soon.
Bye, buddy. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody.